Good afternoon, dear colleagues and friends. Let's wait for the rest of the audience before we start and do a quick sound check. Please type any sign in the chat.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues and friends. Let's wait for the rest of the audience before...
Sorry for the technical issues. So please type any sign in the chat so I will be able to know that you hear me well. Okay, thank you. We are ready to start our online event, and today we will talk about how to increase the chances of being onboarded by international clients and build good relationships with them. You all know where we store our videos of UTIC speeches and webinars. Just follow the green arrow. Yes, it's video section of our website, utic.eu. Also, as you are here on YouTube, please subscribe our channel not to miss our best online events and video publications. And let me introduce today's speaker. Olga Melnikova is a localization project manager at Moravia, US office, and an adjunct professor at Middlebury Institute of International Studies and at Monterey. Olga worked as a freelance translator and interpreter for 7 years before she got an MA degree in translation and localization management. More information you can find on our website in webinar section. And our today's meeting is going to be hosted by me, Irina Vizier, UTIC PR Manager. Now it's time for me to turn it over to our speaker. And before we do that, I want to ask all of our attendees to send questions in the chat window. I will ask them in the end of the presentation. Hello, Olga. You have the mic.
Hello, everyone. As I mentioned in the Facebook streaming, it is 6 a.m., 6:11 a.m. here in California. I am going to start my presentation with credits. I would like to thank Teresa Dayarova, Resource Manager and Business Partner Manager at Moravia, for providing me with some information about her work. this information was really useful when I was creating the presentation. And now we'll talk about the target audience of this presentation. So basically, I was a freelance translator myself for 7 years, and I worked in Russia, and I would actually never try to find an international customer. I worked for a great Russian company, but I think that if someone told me at the time that it is all possible, I would maybe try. So basically with this presentation, I will give you some advice about how to find your international customer and how to start earning money in US dollars or in euros. And this presentation is for you if you're a freelance translator or if you're a translation agency. And you see there is this graphics that it is a very simple representation of the industry. Basically, it is based on the book written by Renato Beninato and Tucker Johnson. And I know that Renato already did his presentation, and Tucker is going to speak in April at UTIC. So they wrote a great book, The Global Theory of the Translation Company. And they basically give the structure of the industry in their book. And like in this figure, you see that there are freelancers, basically people who do all the work. Then there are SLVs, which means single language vendors. And by that, we mean translation agencies working with one language pair. Or I would also include, like for the purpose of this presentation, I would also include so-called regional language vendors who do several languages, but still they are limited by the region. For example, an agency that specializes in Spanish, all kinds of Spanish and all flavors, like European Spanish and Latin American Spanish and Mexican Spanish. So this is also SLV because though they're doing several languages, they are still limited and by region or by one language or by close languages. But there are also MLVs, and these are the ones who can become your main customer. They basically do many languages. And the difference between SLVs with several languages and MLVs is that if, for example, MLV client comes and says, we want to localize into 80 languages, the MLV says, okay, of course, sure, even though they may not have linguists for those languages just yet. And their task is basically to find linguists for the languages requested by the client. So Moravia, where I work, is an example of such an MLV. We do have a client who localizes like their product into 80 languages. Luckily, I don't manage that client. But this is basically the main difference. And MLVs work a lot with SLVs and freelancers. And finally, there are clients. And I think we will move to the next slide. We will talk about the clients here. Because you can ask, like, why we need so many intermediaries? Why can't we just reach out to the client? And the answer is right now, the clients are very busy. And they right now, the economy is booming. If we go back to 2008, for example, then the situation was different when there was a crisis. But right now, the economy is booming, and the clients, they are taking care of basically developing their business, and they want to go global, but they don't want to do that themselves because their product, it has nothing to do with localization. Their core business is a service or a cloud service or an app. Basically, this is when they ask MLVs for help. And then MLVs ask SLVs and freelancers for help. And we are going to talk mostly about English as a source and other languages as a target. So basically, I wanted to talk about big recruitment paradox. It's on the previous slide. That big recruitment paradox is, so I've noticed that when I myself was a candidate or just an employee, I have this impression that there are so many other people out there, so many candidates competing for a job. But if you talk to any recruiter or any resource manager, they would tell you, you know, we have so many openings, but we don't have people, and it is so hard to find people. And they would say, and I would say, okay, there are 8 billion people out there right now on the earth. So, but still recruiters, they cannot find candidates. And this is basically where we can work. If we adopt this mindset of a recruiter, then we can be successful. And so let's move to the main topic of our presentation and to our agenda, how to find a global customer. So we'll first look at the ideal candidate profile. Then we'll go at the platforms to use. Then we'll take a look at specializations and types of source content that can be different for different clients. So there is no one size fits all. Then we'll take a look like what jobs do agencies do and what jobs do freelancers do from the customer's perspective when we hire agencies and freelancers. What types of work do we request? And finally, some closing remarks, other considerations. And let's start with an ideal candidate's profile and with ingredients to success. First of all, of course, like the two first items, they are obvious, but basically I should still mention them. You have to have excellent target language skills and excellent English skills in order to understand the source correctly. Then goes product knowledge. And basically what here I would like to mention that IT clients that have their own apps, for example, they require the translators who translate for them to be users of those apps. Or if you work for a big client, if you, for example, translate for Microsoft, then you would rather have a Microsoft Windows computer. And there are different clients, they sometimes localize for iPhones, they localize for Androids. So you cannot really translate an Android app if you don't know how to use the Android app and Android platform. And basically, even smaller clients, when they first come and then you start working for them, sometimes you haven't even heard of those clients and products, but then you need to start becoming a user, actually, just because it's not possible to translate a user interface without being aware of what it is all about. That's why all the clients require that the linguists who work on their content, they are also users. And number 4 is also very important, and I will talk about it a little bit more. So basically, recruiters have this perspective that is not always correct, that if you can't write emails in English, then you don't know English, which means that your English skills are not satisfactory, so they won't pick you. Though it's not always the case. I myself, when I was a translator, I did translate from English, but I didn't know how to write emails just because I didn't have this experience. But this, when you start, and the first impression that the resource manager gets about you comes through emails, and later on, when you become an established and well-known linguist within this company, it won't matter that much at all. But at the very beginning, it's your face. This is how you are interfacing for the first time. Luckily, American English is all about cliche and business English, I mean. And you don't have to be eloquent or to write, I don't know, new types of emails every single time. You can just use cliches. And I developed a training program for project management interns. And I just put several ways of saying hello. Like, this is the first thing, like 3 ways of saying hello. Then next thing, I hope this email finds you well. Then you write basically the body of your message. And then finally, thank you, looking forward to your reply. And this is enough. So it is really easy to master that, but it is really crucial to do it. And another important thing, we can move to the next one. Another very important thing is CAT tools. Basically, right now, I don't know if MLVs work without CAT, if there is any MLV at all in this world that doesn't use CAT tools. And this is absolutely a must. If you want to work with a global customer, you have to master CAT tools, and you have to have them on in your profile and in your resumes. I would say, so I teach a course, so I can give some advice about CAT tools. You can start with easier ones, and you can always master them, because any company, they give you a free trial of their product. I mean, any company that that makes CAT tools, they give you free trial, and this free trial lasts for a month or 1.5 months. And during this time, you can definitely learn this CAT tool. And you can start with an easier one, which is MemSource. MemSource is a very clean, easy CAT tool to use, and it's perfect for the beginners. It has a free edition of 2 files. So basically, if you upload 2 files, then you can use it for free. Once you have learned MemSource, you can move to a more complex one, MemoQ, and then finally Trados. Trados is the most complicated one. Once you have mastered these 3 CAT tools, it will be easy for you to master any other CAT tool out there that a lot of clients may use. So a lot of clients right now use CAT tools that are not that common. For example, the US clients, they love SmartLink, and they make all their translators work in SmartLink. They can also use CMS, content management system. So all the work is done in their content management system. But as far as you have mastered technology, the basics, you will be able to learn it, any other CAT tool easily, just because the principles are all the same. I have put also TMS and CMS here, but this is not a must. Like, CAT tools are absolutely a must. And if you work with international clients, you would still learn how to use TMS, because this is translation management system, and this is how project managers manage their projects and basically interact with freelancers and translation agencies. But if you have some, of course, you need to put that to your resume, because it's very important. So then there is reliability, meeting deadlines. It's self-explanatory, and there is responsiveness, replying as soon as possible. If you are contacted, just make sure that you reply right away, because in many cases, desperate managers, they reach out to many people, and the first person who comes back, they get the job. So I am already used to the fact that our linguists, I send them a message and they reply as soon as they can. Within 24 hours for sure, but it's better to reply. Of course, we have different time zones. But it's crucial that you check your emails regularly, and that you configure your spam box so that no important emails end up there. And readiness to take unpaid tests is another very important thing, because basically this is how you get there, how you get in the pool of the linguists. And so what happens is the clients request new languages, for example, and usually they request a lot of languages altogether. So we start looking for candidates, and in Moravia, at least, Moravia doesn't pay linguists for tests, and they are free of charge because there are so many candidates. And at each step, basically the reviewers, they review the tests, and at each step they filter candidates. The first step is our internal Moravia reviewers. They determine if the test is a pass or a fail. And following the instructions is also very important. It's one of the criteria to determine pass or fail. So even if the test has a great quality, but let's say text in brackets shouldn't have been translated, and this is indicated in the instructions, but it's still translated, then it's a big minus, and the reviewer can even give fail. Then another step is the client's reviewers. Right now, clients are very conscious about quality, and they have their internal marketing managers for each market. Let's say they have Japanese marketing manager for Japan. And these marketing managers, though they are not linguists, but they review the final tests that we send them. And they decide like who to pick. So this is a very lengthy process, and sometimes there are tens of tests that need review. But this is the entry point for you to reach out to the customer for the first time. And then once you are in the pool, it will be easier. And basically, I would like to summarize everything on these two slides by saying that, so you have resource managers or recruiters. People normally tend to use how, like, Daniel Kahneman got the Nobel Prize for determining that we have two types of thinking, slow and fast. So we tend to think fast and to use our usual habits. So recruiters are also people, and once you get there, and once they include you in your pool, they will, even if they need new people, they will still start with the fast way, with the people that they have. So our linguists, they are very booked, and any new request goes to them first, and then they say, oh, we can't do this. Only in this case, when all the means are already used, only in this case, the recruiters go out there and they search for new candidates. That's why at the very beginning, you have to, and this is number 9, but this is important, You have to be ready to spend a lot of time looking for customers. It is inevitable. But once you get to at least one, it will be already a big victory. And I don't want to say that it's impossible, and I don't want to say that it is too easy. There is no black and white, and this is basically somewhere in the middle. So it is feasible, it is doable. It is not that easy. It's not like you just contact a recruiter and then that's you get the job. You have to make some efforts, but it is doable. And let's move to our next slide, when we will start talking about what platforms to use. So once you make sure that you comply with the ideal candidate's profile and that you have learned CAT tools, you can build your profile on platforms. Make sure that you have your profile on LinkedIn, Upwork, Translators Cafe, and ProZ. Have your resume ready as well. And the first thing is to identify top LSPs, language service providers. Basically, they are the hugest multi-language vendors, MLVs, who all have their databases. So you need to register their profile there, because before actually going outside and looking somewhere else, recruiting managers, they actually go, hiring managers, they go to the databases of the existing linguists and translation agencies. So make sure you register your profile, and there is no limit to perfection because you can identify as many as you want. You can just Google by the revenue, by the size of the company. And for Moravia, I'm giving the link. However, you would also need to follow these suppliers at the platforms that everyone uses nowadays. These 4 platforms is also where recruiters are looking, and you would need to follow the pages there. And basically, very often, not in all the cases, but in cases of many companies, they post there if they have an opening, and if they are looking for candidates, they would make a post, so you will see it. And there is not only that, you should also be ready to sometimes, so if you see an opening, that's perfect. You just reach out to the recruiter and you start talking to them. However, there are also cold calls, and no one likes cold calls. This is when you just know who the recruiter is and simply reach out to them through LinkedIn, through a private message, add them to your network and say, hey, I'm a translator with that background. So no one likes it, of course, but it happens. And normally, sometimes it can work. So it is, of course, like not that it's quite tedious, and sometimes, and very often people don't reply. But recruiters, if they're professional, they do reply. They would at least say that, please register in our database or something like that. So you need the boldness. Nowadays, you can reach out to any person, literally through all the social media channels. Don't use Facebook though, use LinkedIn. But you can, there are so many localization companies out there, and they have so many recruiters. So if you just find them and start personal interaction with them, there is a very good chance as well. So just use these platforms and be as active as possible. And next, we are going to talk a little bit about customer requirements. And what is no one size fits all. basically, for full-time positions, this rule works perfect. And the rule is the client has requirements, and if your resume fits these requirements, then you are a perfect candidate. And they have job descriptions, and there are now resources developed that actually help you to evaluate how well your resume fits within the job description of the client, and it shows how high the chance is to get the job. And this is a little bit funny, but it really works. This is how hiring managers, this is how they search for candidates, by clients' requirements. And if you are like a great person and a super professional, but the client asks for 5 years and you only have 3 years of experience, then you don't qualify. They would just not even consider your resume. This is not that strict for for freelance positions and for contractors who are translation agencies and freelancers. But still, clients' requirements nowadays can be very specific. They all love their products, and they. Oh, sorry, we've got. Can we get back to the slide? Clients. So basically, they all love their products, and if their products is related to fitness, for example, they would put this requirement: translators should do fitness and should love fitness and fitness apps. They should be users of fitness apps. Or if for example they have a game product, translators should know the game and they should be gamers. And of course, it's not always possible to satisfy these requirements. However, if by chance you are a gamer, make sure you indicate this in your profile and in your resume, because if the recruiters get this description, and your profile will show up the first. You will be the first candidate. So if you have a hobby, if you love fitness, or if you love games, or if you love music or movies, put it in your profile. Who knows? Right now, like I said, it's all very it's all very specific. So maybe they will find you just by the fact that you love a certain game. And another thing is to fit the budget. Clients set budget, and I would say you would need to negotiate the price. So don't make it too high or too low, but rather, first of all, you can judge by the client. If the client is big, if it's well known, then most likely they will pay more. If you don't know the client, if you haven't heard of them, then maybe they won't want to pay more. However, it is okay to negotiate, and it is hard to negotiate up. But this is also at the very beginning. If you are like a long-term contractor of this company, it's okay if you raise your rates once a year. So if you feel that that you are well established and you are a good linguist for this particular client, the company won't want to lose you, so you can play up. However, if you're only starting, and especially if you are trying to get there, as I said, it's like the hardest thing to get there, and then everything will be very easy. They won't want to lose you. They will do all that they can. We will do all that we can. But at the very beginning, and there are so many candidates, and you don't know whether this candidate, you don't know how the relations will be. So at the very beginning, you can put like the price that is reasonable for the customer. However, if you like, again, it's all very no one size fits all. Like, it's as you feel when you are negotiating. You can feel that the resource manager becomes desperate, and you can then stop. But like I said, overall, no black and white. Just in somewhere in the middle. And I also wanted to mention that I'm talking about my experience. I have only been like in this industry as a PM in this country, working in this country for 3 years. If I had 20 years, I would maybe say something else. But this is only my experience, and there may be other areas that I don't know about. So what I'm saying here is not exhaustive, by far not exhaustive. I know there is a huge life science, which is medical translation division, that is completely different. And this is a huge part of localization industry. But I frankly know nothing about it. However, what I can recommend, and it's only a part of the reality, but in like what we work with is normally user interface and marketing. And this is what our clients request in the first place. They just come and they say, here's our product. Can you localize the strings of the app, which is user interface? And marketing is always a huge part of the business. So, and we need marketing right away. They always come with these two things. However, like I said, these are only, I work for a particular team. And this may not always be the case for every single client, of course. But what I can recommend, get experience in user interface and marketing, and put it to your resume and to your profile in the platforms, because this is what recruiters filter for. They filter by words, marketing, and then they find candidates by that. And you have to have this on your resume to get the job. Then the next, they move to support or help files. They have websites, for example, and there are help files there, how to use the website or the product. And this is another type of content, but it always goes after the first two. And normally we give it to the same people. This type is very this type of content is very is considered easy compared to marketing, for example. And finally, at some point, the same client, when they have been working with us for some time, they ultimately request legal translation as well. But it never goes first. So things to pay attention to are UI and marketing, and this is IT segment. If you have experience in that, then there is a very high chance you will get a job. And as for in-country versus out-of-country, in-country linguists or translation agencies are the ones that work in the target language country. Like, for example, I may not qualify anymore because I'm Russian, but I live outside Russia. So I don't know cultural, I don't get cultural changes from here, and everything has changed so much. So I might not qualify. A lot of clients, they require this is just a must for people to be in country of the language. Otherwise, marketing consequences and reputation consequences can be very harsh, and they can damage the perception of the product in this particular market. However, out-of-country linguists are also very popular, because in the US, the clients right now, they try to recruit in-house people. So they sometimes ask that they are in the country where this client is located. So again, there is no one size fits all, and it is all very different. And now let's talk about agencies versus freelancers, and from the customer's perspective. Of course, well, so of course it's not maybe that obvious, but for project managers, it is easier to manage agencies just because there's only one moving part. And this agency does, within itself, it does translation, editing, and proofreading workflow, which in the case of IT industry, translation plus editing is enough. However, like for some industries, I know life sciences, they also use proofreading, so this is different. But basically, we don't spend that much time just because translation agencies, they do it within themselves. But there is one problem here. If there are tests that were approved by us and by the client, we need those people to complete the main bulk of work. However, sometimes these people get sick, and the translation agencies, since we don't have visibility into it, the translation agencies give the work to someone else who was never tested. And then it has happened already several times that the client says, this style is wrong. We didn't approve this candidate. And it shows right away, like our marketing managers say, that's not good. So for some, that's why in some cases we still use freelancers, and we use two different freelancers, one for translation and one for review. I think it's really like half by half, or maybe we use agencies a little bit more than freelancers for this type of work, translation plus editing. Teresa, our recruiting manager, she told me that the best you can get is a group of two people who work together. They don't need too much management on our side. They manage within themselves. But basically, she said that this is an ideal that she's looking for. So, for example, for one language, for an Asian language, we have mother and daughter. A mother translates and the daughter reviews. It can be a husband and wife. It can be like two friends. But if you work in this group and if you have more or less the same background, that's the most precious type of candidates. And finally, there are also a lot of other things, a lot of other types of work that we do, and that only freelancers qualify. For example, they do linguistic quality assurance. Moravia has a separate linguistic department that is very big, and they do LQA on everything. And so right now, for example, I use a lot of LQA with a new client because we need to ensure a great quality. So LQA person, they just evaluate the output of the translator plus reviewers. Basically, they don't change anything. They just fill out the form. And then there is this question, who is right? And this is a big part of Moravia business. So if you become a linguist at some point, and if we start trusting you, then you can start doing LQA. There is also transcreation, and there is also review of tests. By the way, since the tests, though the tests are unpaid, free of charge for those who do them, for the reviewers, as for the reviews, we pay them for tests. And we do lots of tests. So reviewers, they get a lot of work. We have people who only do LQA and nothing else. We have people who only do the test review, and it keeps them busy. So there are lots of, I'm sorry. There are lots of opportunities. And finally, let's take a look at other considerations, because we are running out of time. And I would say credentials are important, then resume, basically resume means everything that is here. Put this in your resume. Put your experience. Experience is the main criteria that recruiters use. Like I said, they compare the client's requirements, and experience is the key. Then you need to put your hard skills, which is a real skill, like mastering a CAD tool, and soft skills, which is not really a real skills, because they're interpersonal skills, they're personal skills, personality, like great communication and keen attention to detail, and working under pressure and working in a fast-paced environment. So all of those soft skills, they're also important. If you have any endorsements and mentions, ideally from clients, that would be great. Put it there as well. Put it into your resume and attach it to your profile in social media. And finally, a very important thing is keeping names of your clients confidential. We have literally clients who rejected their previous vendors because they found out that the freelancers who were doing work for this vendor, they bragged on Facebook that they translated for this client. When they saw it, they just discarded that vendor. And this is very important. Contractors all sign non-disclosure agreements. And it is really key that you never ever mention any of your clients, and you only give them a descriptive name. Basically, you say, this is a big entertainment streaming company, or it is a popular fitness app, something like that. And also membership in professional associations is also important. Basically, anything is important that can add to your add value to your resume and make your profile look very solid. So just to summarize all that we have talked about today, it is not easy to get there, but it is possible, especially nowadays. So if you have patience and if you are committed, just start allocating time to this. Like maybe say to yourself, I will spend 1 hour per day on learning CAD tools first and building my experience so that I could present myself as having the solid experience, and put marketing, IT, your user interface, put basically any IT items that you can find, like I can translate websites, I can translate phone apps, I can translate desktop apps. So basically any piece of experience is important, and but never mention the names of your clients at the same time. Give them as a descriptive, like description. Then you can start looking actively when you have a solid profile, register in the databases of big players, big industry players, and create your profile in LinkedIn, Upwork, Translators Cafe, ProZ, and start following opening positions. If you don't see opening positions, that's fine. You can even identify resource managers and chase them. Well, not to not too annoying, but at the same time building personal relations. You can reach out to them, do so-called cold calls, cool calls, and finally, if they notice you, they will offer you unpaid tests to take a test. Never say no to that. Be ready to take the test, but follow the instructions as well, and make sure you do your best. If you were rejected, this is not because you are a bad translator, but just clients reviewers, they're sometimes very weird. They have very weird perspective, so they don't pick good translators. And it just happens that way. But maybe in most of the times, the clients are still because they want success of their product. So So just be patient and allocate time to that. And finally, when you negotiate the price, if you're already there, it's okay to put something in the middle. And then if you see that like you are valued, you can raise the rate, or you may not raise the rate. So basically it all depends on so many aspects. And this is basically it. I'm ready for questions and answers.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you for your speech. And of course, we have some questions from our audience. And what would you recommend to the students who just have graduated from the universities or are still going their last years because, you know, they don't have experience, but experience is the must?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the recommendation would be you would first need to start working for the local agency, which is like single vendor agency, single language agency, which is in your country. And this is, I think, how you can start your career. Being contracted to a single language vendor is not bad as well. They on their side, they are contractors of big players. So I would recommend just start with small things. I mean, not really small things, but start gaining experience first, because you have to build a solid profile. And if you don't have experience on your profile, then you won't qualify. So just use any opportunities to start building your experience. If you're in the last year in the university, this is actually when I started my career. I just started translating for a small agency that was in my city, Kaluga. It is very small, and I didn't get much money, but I just started with that. And then I moved to Moscow, continued in Moscow, and then basically this is how I built my experience. There is also an opportunity to try doing crowdsourcing, participating in crowdsourcing. Some companies, if you register, for example, in platforms, in CAT tools like Transifex, there are a lot of CAT tools that are not common, but there are a lot of clients who use them. Sometimes the clients they just don't understand the value of translation and localization, so they use community translators, or they use crowdsourcing, which means they just announce, hey, we have a product, who wants to translate it for free? And you can register at those platforms like Transifex or Crowdin. I can look it up and send you more. But basically, once you register your profile there as a translator, you will see a lot of requests to translate for free. Just use them, and this also gives you experience. This is all for the sake of experience. Later on, you may say, "Oh, I have translated UI strings of a big company in Transifex." So it's a bummer. It's your ticket to big clients, basically. But do not expect much from the very beginning. Just start with small steps, and gradually you will get there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And we have another question about CAT tool. What do you think about Smart CAT?
Frankly, did not use it. But I don't know if I can say, like, I didn't read it, but I use it, right? But I would say it's one of the many tools out there, and it's just sometimes not possible to get experience in all of them, and it is not that required. because, for example, in SmartLink that a lot of the clients use, it's so expensive and only enterprises can use it. So there is no way for you to get experience unless you actually worked for such a client. So there are a lot of tools out there, but you can just go and check. And I don't know what particular features SmartCat has. I have used MateCat, but I know that SmartCat is now also widely used, especially in Russia and Ukraine. Here we don't use it that much, but again, I'm sure that like if I start working there, I will master it quite soon, just because the basic principles are the same. There is a new feature though right now. There is a CAT tool called LILT, L-I-L-T, and they use predictive typing. This is a new type of a CAT tool, and other CAT tools already started doing the same thing. Basically, they say this is a future of CAT tools because it combines learning in the real time. Because when you type your translation, the system offers you the variants, and you pick the one that you need, and the machine learns what you picked in the real time. So next time they will offer you like the one that you picked. And this is a very different functionality from what we had before. But some people say that this is the future of the industry. This is how all the CAT tools are going to function ultimately. And Trados already has their dictionaries that offer also, if you install them, then you will have this functionality. So who else? SmartLink also has a plugin. You can enable it if you want. Yes, so, but I haven't had experience with SmartCat particularly.
Okay, thank you. And we have another questions. And there is some controversial points of view about test translation. Some say that anything over 250 words must be paid, but there is a controversial point that that word count limit depends on the willingness to get the work. And sometimes free tests of big volume can help in getting some big profits.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I agree with that. It's really controversial because if this is a well-known company and if this is an established company in the market, they won't be doing this. They won't be just sending you tests saying that these are tests, but in fact you will be doing real translations and you won't be paid for it. So I would say just look at the name of the company and Google it. If it's not in the news, if no one knows about it, then maybe it's fake. And this company is not how to say it's not going to last, and it's only a temporary company. But I should definitely say that in Moravia we don't do this for sure, and the tests that we send, because I worked with several clients already, and they all evaluate candidates. They will all want to see the tests first, and they include the tests are built based on the content, and sometimes based on the content of this client. And sometimes the clients, they create tests themselves. So it's not even us. But I would say the tests should not be long. And yes, 200 words is maybe enough for a test. If it's more, especially if it's 500, for example, that may be suspicious. So just work with trusted companies.
Okay, thank you. And another question. what if you've got contracts with several companies but don't get any assignments in them? What, as a translator, should you do in this case?
Yes, this is a very good question. I think that it happens a lot. So you take a test, you pass it, and then you just don't hear from this company for a year or so. Yes, unfortunately, this is a part of the job, and it's just sometimes things get canceled, and sometimes clients they want something and then they change their mind, they don't want it. Or maybe the person who contacted you and put you to the database, they just filling in the database, and this is their main purpose. They just do it, you know, beforehand. Some people are just, they just want to, they don't want surprises, you know, at the last minute. So they would rather guarantee that they have a database of contractors. But yeah, it's just the part of the job. Unfortunately, there is nothing we can do. We can just continue looking, and yes, it's just a part of the reality. Yeah, just if they don't contact you, then continue looking, and if you look long enough, at some point you will find something.
And we have some questions from our project managers. What issues do you experience the most when working with freelancers? And what would you recommend to translators to keep good relationships with the clients you already work with?
So basically, what I mentioned in the ideal candidates profile is translators should meet the deadlines, of course, and sometimes we get urgent jobs, and it's great. I mean, the first person who replies gets the job, so responsiveness is really important. And basically, we are their clients. They don't interact with the clients directly, so we are intermediates, so we are their clients. And just being professional is enough, and ensuring good quality, of course, because like if you are committed from the very beginning, you have completed the test, you were selected, so it means that you provide a good quality, so keep this quality consistent. Be professional in your emails. Do not write rude emails, because it also happens. Sometimes like people are upset and they just send an email, and of course we lose any desire to work with this person. And I should say that basically being professional is the main thing, and it includes everything. It includes being polite, it includes delivering projects on time, it includes responding quickly and not waiting for 1 week. So this is it.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, our time has run out, and if you have more questions, you can ask Olga on Facebook, and she will answer you, of course, I think. Yes, Olga?
Yes, and I just wanted to make a conclusion, and also referring to the questions about not being contacted by PMs anymore. I would say that there is really a lot of work, and your task is just find this work. They sometimes talk about automation, and that the TMs, that translation memories, they're killing the profession, they're killing the translator's profession. But this is not true. It's just transforming. And if we take a look at the amount of content, it is much bigger than before, because any company, any small company right now has a website, for example. There are so many websites to translate, so much content in the electronic form. So basically do not think that that this is that you're going to get less jobs, or don't think that there is only a limited amount. Actually, there's lots of work. It's just a matter of finding the ways of getting it. And if you use the advice that I've given, and maybe I will get more experience, I will share more. you will find what you're looking for, because there's a lot of work.
Okay, thank you, Olga. I think we will need to have another webinar to continue this point of view, I think.
Yes, I will get more clients and I will share further what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And we are happy to announce the next webinar with Alexey Kazulayev. We will talk about the audio-visual translation and its influence on the translation itself. The webinar will take place on 22nd of February at 4 p.m. And we would like to thank to our sponsors. Our platinum sponsor is Language Solutions Pro, and the gold sponsor is Logos Global. We appreciate their support, and we are really glad to meet our standing partners in our sponsors team. We also ask you to give us some feedback. Here is a form to let us know your opinion about this webinar. We don't say goodbye, as we will already meet you in 2 weeks. See ya!